Welcome to the Eye of the Observer podcast, the podcast of the Observer news staff. On Eye of the Observer, we'll be interviewing the newsmakers and fascinating personalities at Elgin Community College, or sometimes we'll be talking about news or cultural topics among ourselves to inform and entertain you. My name is Vansh,
I'm Eric.
I'm Matt.
Moises.
and this episode is sponsored by Columbia College of Missouri. Begin a new chapter at Columbia College of Missouri in Elgin, offering flexible, affordable degrees for real lives and real responsibilities. Located locally on the ECC campus, you can take classes in person or online, all at your own pace. Apply today at elgin.ccis.edu. Columbia College, building new paths to success.
Okay, so today we're going to talk about ethics and how it influences people's decisions and the industries pretty much everywhere in the world. I guess the whole point of what we're going to be talking about today is what we think of ethics and what ethics really is in the world.
So I think what's most important to talk about on today's episode is what is ethics. Does anyone have like a definition off the top of their head, or maybe a simplified definition? Or am I looking it up?
Look it up, please.
Okay. Oxford Languages definitions, okay? It's a noun, moral principles that govern a person's behavior or the conducting of an activity. The second definition, the branch of knowledge that deals with moral principles. Now, I know that it's a little complicated, so simplified. It's just rational justification for our moral judgments. What's morally right or what's morally wrong or unjust.
Right. And I know there are classes dedicated to this type of subject. Have any of you actually taken ethics, like the class, or no?
No.
I haven't, but I feel like there's bias. I feel like anything that a teacher teaches, especially with ethics, there should be like bias. Like you come in with some sort of opinion, and I feel like it could be ethics, but at the same time, is it ethics?
Right. And the problem I think people really have with ethics usually is that they say there is a right and wrong. They say that there's a way that you should think, but the whole point of having an opinion is that there isn't a set way of thinking, right? And I guess it's what we could really talk about in ethics. And as most of you know, ethics kind of exists in pretty much everywhere: medicine, law, businesses, our economy, and even politics. So it really exists everywhere, and it's enforced differently in each, area. So.
And I agree. I mean, honestly, I feel like with ethics, sometimes it's also about comfortability, if that's the right word I'm using. Like, if you're not comfortable with certain situations, you go ahead and disagree with those, and you kind of like think about it like, oh, like that's not the right thing, or that's not what somebody
Like you're forming your own ethics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like ethics is like a big word that it can mean anything.
It's such a broad term.
Yeah.
Right? You know,
Like, what is ethics for real? Like, what do you think ethics is?
Honestly, ethics, in my opinion at least, it's moral judgments, and it's basically the justifications based on some type of actions. For example, everyone here, if I'm assuming correctly here, you all have some sort of, like, I guess even if you weren't raised with it, religious affirmation, like some type of religious background.
Right.
Yeah.
Either now or at one point in your life, okay? And your who you are as a person affects what you think is right and wrong. For example, I think maybe what Eric might be doing is that he thinks it's right, I think it's wrong. So in my case, it's unethical.
Right.
And there's so many different ways that we can kind of be like, oh, what Matthew does is right, but he thinks what I'm doing is wrong. And there's always these debates around what ethics really is. But I think it boils down to the individual.
Yeah.
And then there's certain ethics that people can, as a group say, oh, yeah, this is really unethical. We shouldn't do this.
And you know what? Like, I think like one thing that like growing up, I kind of like was introduced to like the idea, like when I was growing up, my mom always wanted us to listen to her. Like, we had to like turn off the TV or like music or whatever we were doing, and we had to pay attention to what she was saying. And I feel like because I grew up in that type of environment, every time I'm around someone, they have their earbuds on or their AirPods on. They're listening to music, and I'm talking to them, and
It's like disrespectful.
and it pisses me off.
Right, yeah,
like
I
low
get what
key,
you're
I'm
saying.
like, bro, like take that off. Like I'm trying. And I feel like, I don't know, would that be considered ethics, or would that be like considered ethics in my sort of opinion because I grew up in that type of environment? Like, what is it? Like,
Yep.
No, go ahead. No, it's on you.
All right, bro. So I guess that is kind of ethics. It's like social norms, what you thought or were raised with, and that you think is correct.
Like
that type of thing.
ethical relativism.
Yeah.
Relativism. I can pronounce
Yeah,
it.
relativity. And
Yeah,
something like that. See, I get mad when that happens too. By the way, like I'm talking to someone and they're like scrolling through their phone. I'm like, you're not listening to me.
But the problem is that the same people that do that are the same people that say, "Oh, but I am listening to you," because they say they can multitask. And I believe that there is people that can multitask, but is it right or wrong?
I don't know.
Like, I think it's
see a
wrong.
disagreeing person in front of me.
I think if we go into terms of what is ethics and we kind of boil it down to its simple roots, I guess it's more of the justifications behind it, and everyone has individual ethics. I think that if we went on and on about individual ethics, we would be here forever just talking about what we think is right and wrong. I think what is fair to those who's listening and to us right now is can we accept on some terms certain group ethics? For example, why do we enforce ethics? Why are we always kind of pointing it out where we're like, you might be unethical? Or why is it important? I'm saying a lot of questions here, but why is it important in for example, medicine, if a doctor is unethical, that they have to be brought up to an ethics board of some sort?
I mean, ethics as itself is a moral code, usually pretty individual. But the reason why they're enforced the way they are is so that everyone kind of follows almost a set of unwritten rules.
Yeah.
So you don't offend people, so that you can define what is considered offensive or what is not offensive, what's correct and what is incorrect, on a way that's more broad for everyone to understand and agree with. While not everyone agrees with ethics, it's important. Philosophers like Thomas Hobbes said, if there's no government, there is no people, right? There's no structure, there's no rules to follow, you know?
So, an example, Lord of the Flies.
Right, that's a great example,
That's a great
actually.
example.
Yeah, like where what happened to those kids? Like they landed in an island and like they didn't know what to do and they were trying to figure it out and they had to create a government, but somehow that government took over control and started doing crazy things. Type of situation.
Yeah, so they have their own form of ethics out in the wild. So, and that's an extreme and a pretty fictitious example, but it really highlights what ethics is.
It kind of bubbles it down
Yeah.
right to what you're expecting. Honestly, I think that's a really good example. But I think another example of ethics and where we have standards is medicine. So for those who are at home, all four of us are pharmacy techs. Two of us have been there for over a year now, and two of us have just recently started in the last 6 months. So I'm one of the people who have been there for over a year, and so has Moises there over there.
7 years.
7 years, yes, sir.
Yeah, bro.
But we both been pharmacy techs for, I guess, a while now. We'll classify as a while. And our version of ethics is different than to Matthew and Eric, who work with me in the same pharmacy and whatever. So I guess I'll start off with Moises here. What is a big thing in pharmacy that you can think of right now that would kind of be considered unethical?
Like patient wise or like us?
Both.
So there's something called HIPAA. And basically what it is to protect the privacy laws of, the privacy of patients. Obviously, anybody that works in the medical field knows what HIPAA is and PHI. And so one of my pet peeves in the pharmacy is that when a patient knows we're helping a patient out and they walk like literally right next to that other patient you're helping and they're like, oh, I have a question. Or like they're just waiting to pick up their medications. And you're just like, bro, like I'm helping out this patient, like wait for your turn. Or like, can you step behind a stop sign type of situation? That's what I hate.
Now, I'm going to follow up with that. Do you think it's unethical? And I'm talking to Matthew and Eric right now. But do you guys think it's unethical or if it's ethical or unethical for a technician to respect the other patient's privacy and tell that other patient who's just intervened and who just went in between you two to tell them to go back to line or stand back or, you know, to protect the other patient's
Unethical,
privacy?
is what you're asking?
Is it unethical or ethical?
Ethical, as long
Yeah.
as you do it respectfully.
Because you're treating them the same. You're not treating the other one like...
No. You
But-
got to be like, hey, sir, can you please go, or ma'am, or whatever.
Right.
Please go back to the line. I got to help
You're not
this
going to
patient
swear
out."
at them and go like, oh, actually, never mind. But yeah.
Wait, did I
right.
swear just now?
No.
No.
But then
I don't know.
there's a problem though. So I think it's ethical, right? And I've only been there for 7 years, but I'm a pharmacy tech, and there's like a pharmacist that works in the pharmacy with me, where like they don't like it and it's just a person. They don't like it when I say, tell the patient, oh, go back behind the stop sign. They're like, oh, just leave them there, because it looks rude in their opinion. And I'm just like, but that's not right for me, because it's disrespecting the other person's privacy. So again, what is ethical?
Yeah. And in terms of medicine, there's so many different topics that we could go on and on about,
Yeah.
including political topics too, that relate directly to medicine and why they could be unethical or ethical. And I think in pharmacy, we can mutually agree on this one, that HIPAA and PHI, all the ethics surrounding that, everything's accurate. Like, as a technician, you don't want to violate a patient's privacy, especially if it's
Nope.
some certain drugs that they don't really want to know anyone's taking them. So you do your best to be like, you kind of respect that privacy because they're respecting you,
Yeah.
right? They chose your pharmacy. They're putting their lives in your hands.
Yeah.
You want to do the same. You want to respect them
Yeah.
for, having that confidence and trust. But in terms of ethics, though, it was a great example. But can the new pharmacy techs propose an example of some sort?
I got one actually. I'm not a new tech, obviously, but I feel like an example of like HIPAA, why HIPAA is so important and PHI is so important is because, and I feel like all females that use birth controls can relate to this. Like a lot of women use birth control, and a lot of them don't want their family members to know that it's there. So I feel like that's why PHI is so important, because there is people that don't want other people to know, like
what they're
family
going
members.
through, right?
Yeah,
And all
what
the
they're going through,
medications.
or like, because like when you think of birth controls, what do you automatically think? Like you're doing sexual things.
Yeah, right.
It's like same thing with sildenafil, like medications that stuff like that. So
Viagra, basically.
yeah, like Viagra type things, like we don't, like if I was on Viagra, I wouldn't want my family to know that I'm on that stuff, like
Yeah.
that'd be weird. First of all, like stay away.
Yeah.
I was actually about to mention that. Like, there are some patients that come in just for that, and if someone just butts in and reads the the label of the bottle or anything, they literally know exactly.
Yeah.
Like, that's just.
Which is why
really
I'm so
rough.
glad, like in our pharmacy, like where we work at, there's these barriers, so they can't see what I'm giving them or what they're buying or whatnot,
Yeah, you can just peep behind the person in front of you and see everything they got. If there wasn't, like, if we didn't have spaces in line, or we didn't have a system where it's serve one and like wait in a different set of a line, like there's so many ways where someone can like violate someone's privacy like that. And I'm glad we see eye to eye in how we ethically do things.
Well, what if somebody didn't see eye to eye though? Like, you know what I'm saying? Because like I
Well-
feel like there's like a natural thing to agree on. Like
Yeah.
it's a natural to agree on.
Yeah. So I honestly think people, for the most part, for this, see eye to eye, but they have different opinions. Just like what Moises said is, the pharmacist that he works with says, no, keep them there. But he says, put them at the back of the line. Same thing, but Moises has a bit more of like protection for the patient's privacy other than just stay over there.
Yeah, because I feel like that has to do with the part that the other person is also a customer. And so with corporations and companies, like there's like an ethic rule where you have to respect the customer. And so it's like where,
Yeah.
Especially in retail.
And so, like,
Forget
where-
forget about hospital pharmacy, forget about pharmacy in general, especially in retail. Customer is always right. That statement has never been so wrong when you apply it to pharmacy, because as a tech, you don't know better, obviously, right?
Why don't you get
Customer
fired for
right.
this? No, I'm kidding.
hey, imagine.
I was about to
What
say.
I'm
I
saying
lo-
is, it always makes me upset when someone uses that against me. They're
Yeah.
like,
Oh,
you're
yeah.
not right, but I am. Customer's always right. I'm always like, no.
I'm trying to help you out.
or when they
Yeah.
ask you like, oh, how long have you been here?
Oh, that's a crazy
I've gotten that
question,
so
bro.
many
see
times.
the
I've
one
gotten
year
that
pin
before.
and they don't see it. Like, they still say it.
Oh, bro.
I've never worked.
I've had people be like, it's so easy to look this up, and they've literally never worked behind the counter.
That's
like,
crazy.
they don't even mention that.
Or when they tell you just put a label on that box, like with
That's
inhalers.
literally not how it works.
I'm like, if only I could do that.
Yeah.
Or
Everything raises
here's a quick thing, and I know, and I guess we'll move on to another industry in a second, but I know in tech law, at least in Illinois, technicians aren't allowed to counsel. And one big thing, and because it's a fine line in like law right now, technicians, there's a fine line of how much we could. You can read what's directly on the bottle.
Yeah,
But otherwise, you got to call the pharmacist.
of course.
And what I always do, I always call the pharmacist because I don't want to get in trouble, right?
Yeah.
Because nowadays it's audit season, and with audit season means undercover and all this, all this stuff.
Yeah, crazy stuff.
And so whenever I call the pharmacist, they're like, "Oh, nope, no questions. It's okay. You don't have to do that. Whatever." They'll disregard it. But then they'll call 5 seconds later, being like, "How do I take this medication?"
Mm-hmm.
Now, you tell me right now, if the pharmacist came over and told you how to take it, would that have saved you time? You wouldn't be able. Then you would take it properly, right?
Yeah.
I had this one patient who did that, and then like 30 minutes later called and was like, "Hi, I don't know how to take these antibiotics. I already missed the second dose. What am I supposed to do now?" I'm like, "Well, let me get the pharmacist for you.
You're on your own.
You're on your own for this one." And the pharmacist was like, "You were in here. You said you had no questions. You have a question. Now you missed your second dose. Like."
The thing is, they don't even
Now
like
what?
you say. Do you have any questions for the pharmacist? Is like literally like a NPC line for text, and they always like 90% of the time say no questions, and then they probably just call like 10 minutes later.
Right.
Like I don't understand. Just ask your question, please.
Or they'll be like, "Oh no, but I do have a question," and you're anticipating like a pharmacist question. So, how much does that cost again?
Oh my god.
Or,
bro.
oh, this
how many
isn't-
refills?
Yeah, how many refills? is on there?
I'm like, bro, are
Most
you
fa-
serious?
Most famous one. Why is my copay so high?
Oh my
Oh.
god, bro.
oh my god! Like how?
Actually,
like,
I don't
how
know.
to answer
we,
that.
We got the
Okay.
power to
I-
change or something.
yeah.
I personally don't mind that the pharmacist answers that question because it's always like so annoying. You try to explain them the copay and they're like,
Medicare coverage caps?
Yeah,
And they know more than you
Like-
anyway. Like they literally went to school for, like even more schooling for that. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like,
Well, the
um,
pharmacists don't know anything about insurances. But it's
You
just
don't
that
get
one
taught
question
that.
I don't want to deal with because like I already know what the answer is gonna be.
Yeah,
You're gonna walk out.
When you go to
angry.
pharmacy school, you don't get taught the basics, like, oh, what's third party, what's insurance,
Yeah.
and listen, and like
It's
you
so
know, people
dumb,
who are
bro.
listening, they're not gonna know what third party is and
Yeah.
what's in like insurance
For
claims
sure.
and whatever. You get that on after like job experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
You work more, you learn a lot more. That applies to any job really. But moving on from medicine, I think law is a great thing to shift into here. So if you have any right now,
What is law? Like law ethics?
yeah, what is law ethics?
well,
Go ahead. No,
Okay,
go ahead.
okay. So I know this in medicine. This also applies to law too, but there is like a certain set of, I guess, pillars for ethics. One of them is like a respect for autonomy. So like, basically, what that's saying is your client or your patient, because this works with medicine too, can act in their own self-interest, and you just need to abide by that. So
Okay.
you say, "Sir, I advise you do not bring this person as a witness today to court." They can still do it. You still need to listen to them, but serving as their advisor, you can only just give advice. You know what I mean? You can't control them. Same, and with medicine that happens too. You can't say, take 4 doses of this per day, right? Spacing out every 4 hours. They don't have to do that. They literally can just decide not to. But you can only advise them. You know that is ethics. So you can't force people to do things, and that works in law too. That's a big one.
And I think one big thing is lawyer and client relations. Basically, whatever a client wants to do, the lawyer, again, it's kind of going with what you said, but a lawyer can't act on his or her own like self-interest without looping in the client first. Same thing as a doctor can't prescribe a medication without talking to their patient, which by the way has happened before. You know, it's happened a lot of times where a doctor would kind of prescribe the medication but not talk with the patient about it. And it's
boy.
always a really bad thing. And I guess in legal purview, your lawyer can develop any strategy they want to use, right? That's up to them. They're fighting for you.
Yeah.
But when it comes to figuring out, is this strategy ethically justified? Every client, if you've seen what lawyers do, if you've watched a show called Suits, right? It's not an accurate representation of
Yeah.
law, but it's kind of touches on foundations and what's kind of the day in the life, basically.
Can I say something? So I don't know if you guys want to agree to this or what you guys think.
Roosevelt hated on?
So there should be like a law where like physicians, like any doctor that writes like a prescription has to like actually write it like readable, because there's
Oh my.
like prescriptions
Now
There's
let me
like-
tell you something.
Agreed.
bro.
that like just say like scribbles. And I feel like, and
and
honestly,
gabapentin. Like I don't know.
yeah, like how do you read it? But like, and I feel like why it should be a law is because a lot of the times when the patient brings a prescription to the pharmacy,
They
and I
have no
hate to bring
idea.
pharmacy back. A lot of people that overdose because of the wrong medications, they blame it on pharmacy. But how is that pharmacy's fault when you
It's-
got the doctor that's scribbling
yeah.
these
Nah,
prescriptions?
yeah, you
Yeah,
got
they
a
blame
point.
it on the note. Like
Yeah.
literally.
Like, what do you guys think about that? Like,
Have you heard?
That's
of,
why doctors always have a really good lawyer.
Have you ever heard of like the what do you call it? Not malpractice, but the DEA. They're
Yeah.
putting a new round of laws and enforcements and whatever, and they're recommending a lot of different things to federal. And I think one big thing wasn't about how doctors can write their scripts. It was more what needs to be on the script,
okay.
because it's to prevent, like you said, overdoses and whatever, especially uncontrolled. I hate to bring pharmacy back into this, especially bringing in like controlled substances into the mix.
Yeah.
Man, you got to be careful with that.
You can get
Any
real messed
bad,
up.
any bad thing, and you trigger an audit. Oh my god,
It's over.
Forget about the patient. The pharmacy will go down.
Yeah. Like, even it's the patient's fault in the
Yeah.
pharmacy. It's like, what? Like, we didn't
Wait,
know.
we take all the fines for it and
Yeah.
sanctions, but it's ultimately a patient's issue.
Do you guys think Eric has ethics?
What does that mean?
Is Eric?
Do you have moral standards or values?
I don't know, man. It seems like a personal question for a different day. I'm not gonna lie.
And that's his ethics, is he does not want to share.
Yes.
So,
Padawan.
do you feel like I feel like let's stay away from pharmacy now.
Alright.
Like music industry. Do you feel like there's like a fine line of like ethics there? Because like you're songwriting, right? And you're making music, and there's like some people that don't like the words that you're saying. Like, for example, rap music. Like, rap music is like pretty heavy with like explicit content. You got like people
It's like
twerking
drugs,
and all
money.
that stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. And then there's like some people that disagree with all that stuff, and I hear all the time where like there's always that one person that goes like, "Oh, I hate rap music because it says this and this and this."
But like that's why there's different music genres, you know?
Yeah.
It's to fit everybody's own taste.
Okay.
You catch
Yeah,
me?
I feel you.
Nah, but I get what you're saying though. I get what you're saying.
Yeah, and while there is a division in genre, I think that it's almost necessary to like, what's called, how do I say it? So like, everyone has their own ethics, and it's I think it's necessary for them people to share those ethics when writing songs. Does that make sense? I don't really know how else to phrase it.
And it's not even just writing songs; like it's also journalism.
Yeah.
Like this podcast. Like when we were talking earlier, I introduced like how do you guys like go about introducing topics and that are like within the school standards and not saying the wrong things and like stuff like that.
Nah, right. I get what you're saying.
Yeah, we have ethics here in the Observer when writing stories, right? So
No conflicts of interest, being fully aware of what you write.
Because
No
you
bias.
can't say the wrong thing as
Yeah.
well with articles, you know?
You
I-
have to be factually
The-
correct.
reader disclaimers sometimes depending on what you're writing. Yeah.
Oh,
there's
something
always-
sensitive. Like
Yeah.
a sensitive topic.
So I
Yeah.
feel like overall, you don't have to take an ethics class
To
to
know.
really know what are the rights and wrongs.
Unless you're like, yeah.
Because everybody grows up on like one like idea, and that idea is like, oh, like we have to respect each other. I mean, there is some people out here in the world where they don't care about other people. You got like assassinations and stuff like that, like murders and all that crazy stuff. But like
Chicago.
at least Chicago, walk down the streets of downtown
No,
Chicago.
Not Chicago.
But I feel like ethics is everywhere.
No, right.
So like you don't like I didn't know what the definition of ethics was, but like obviously we follow that code every day, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't go outside naked and like run around and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's. I mean,
no
but
one
then,
wants to see that.
Yeah, right,
No one-
right. That's
I-
a common form of
Yeah.
ethics is like don't run outside naked, but some people do it.
Yeah, right.
But and I think we can all agree on some morals, I guess, right? Killing is bad.
Killing is bad.
Yeah.
Like
killing's bad.
we can accept that.
Right.
You know,
But that's-
wasting food is bad.
Sounds like the Bible so far.
You love wasting food?
No, but I know that there's some people that don't really think about
Well,
it.
I mean,
No, but I'm saying
No,
like
he means
us
between
four,
us four.
like
Oh, us four,
right?
yeah,
Yeah,
us
don't
four,
waste food.
yeah.
don't waste food. Yeah.
Don't
Us
I don't-
five
don't
actually.
steal.
Big shout out to James today. He's actually
Walking around with the camera.
he's taking pictures.
It's
and
like an
doing social media.
interrogation.
Sorry, it's a big off the script type of thing.
Put a
But
Snapchat filter on that.
big shout out to James here. But I think that we can agree on certain morals just because of our experience and how we were raised.
Yeah.
But there's also some morals that stems from our jobs, our responsibilities, our tasks. And then there's also some that comes from experience. For example, my patient experience. I've dealt with a lot of crazy patients before, and there's no end to it. I do immunizations as well, and so does Moises.
Yeah.
So we both kind of like have our own stories for that too. But I think it's kind of time where we kind of transition examples, and maybe we can see if we can mutually agree on something. So,
All right.
for example, we're gonna use your story as an example, where a patient kind of butts into everything, right?
Yeah.
Just butts into a transaction, right? And we all talked about if it was ethical or not. I think we should do that. Go a couple around the table and
Yeah.
see what comes up.
Like
comes
what
out
can
of it.
like if we all agree to it or not type of situation.
Type of
right?
thing,
Okay.
yeah. And maybe what you did in that situation, see if that was ethical.
Okay.
And the reason why I'm saying this is how ethic panels and judges and whatever, this is how they kind of determine it. They throw it around the room, they figure it out, and then they're always like, oh, was this ethical? Was this a good thing or a bad thing? It's so many different things, but I think we should go one way around really quick
Okay.
and then see if we want to do a second one. So if you have an example, you can go ahead, or I can go. It depends.
Are humans born naturally evil?
Nah. I say no. I'm not gonna lie.
I say that if humans were born naturally evil, and if it was true, for example, if it was true that they were born naturally evil, that I think morals and guidelines from parents shape them to be good. I don't think it's anything about if they were born evil and that they're just going to stay evil. I think it's what the environment around them.
Yeah, I agree. With
I
that.
think yeah. So that's nature versus nurture. I feel like nurture is not the correct way of thinking, but it's probably the way that it works. Where basically it's how you're raised. So I feel like when you're a baby or just a young child, you're a clean slate, right? And it's how your parents influence you that you become that way.
I feel like
Cause like okay, but like what if you see somebody like it's like that I forgot the example, but it's like essentially where like you're walking around right per se, you look to your left, you see a baby almost fall into your well. Like,
yeah.
are you gonna go help the baby out because it's like you think it's a good thing?
Nah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Nah,
That's
I'm
crazy.
like, nah,
But
man,
you
it's
guys-
See, to you, it's
like-
crazy, but to him, it isn't.
Nah,
exactly.
yo,
Nah,
hey,
hey,
yo.
ethics. Nah,
No,
But it's
but
like instinct wise, I'd say. I wouldn't say people are born evil. It's just instinct. Like you're supposed to do something good naturally. You know, does that make sense?
So yeah, you think nature, we all think nurture.
I
See,
think-
everyone could have their own opinions.
I
with
think
this
it's the
thing.
psychological component of it as well, because I think ethics is also like there's a psychological component of it. As a kid, right?
Yeah.
Kids are always they're influenced
No, that is
by
very true.
surroundings, but they're also influenced by those who take care of them. So you go to preschool, right, and you see little Timmy have like these really cool Nike kicks, right? You love them.
And you want to steal them?
No, you don't want to
Oh,
steal
okay.
It
them.
depends
Bro,
on who you
what?
are.
Not right.
Yeah, maybe
If
you
your-
want to steal them,
if
but
your
we're gonna say little.
Parents aren't very cool. You'll want to steal the shoes.
Yeah.
But we're gonna say little Timmy is morally accepted, right?
Okay.
And he goes to his parents and he asks for shoes, the same shoes, whatever, right? And he keeps doing it, and finally he gets them. But now he doesn't like them anymore because the kid he was looking up to has new shoes now. So now he wants new shoes. Do you get what I mean? It's like when you see someone get a Nintendo Switch. Oh, I want a Nintendo Switch. So now what? You're gonna go pursue that Nintendo Switch.
I feel like that has to do more of like being spoiled.
Or
But-
just a
but
groupthink method where you think like others because you look up to them.
Yeah, and I guess if you go in that route in terms of ethics, right? Let's loop in ethics here.
Okay.
But if you go into that route in terms of ethics, if someone you look up to, they're like, oh, I think this is just an example. It's not a real example, but murder is bad. You're gonna think murder is
Is it?
bad.
Is it bad?
Don't say is it. Don't
it
say
bad?
is it.
I
Is it
watch
bad?
I
Is it
watch a
bad?
bunch of Forensic Files, man.
Ah.
My guy.
But let's say someone you look up to says murder is good. Now
Are
what?
you gonna agree with the person? Are you asking?
It's,
Are-
that's where ethics comes into play.
That's where ethics come into play. Do you agree with the person you look up to in hopes that you'll become them, or do you fight that?
And you just have a natural values. See,
Um,
when that happens to me,
or-
I don't think like that. I don't be like, oh, I agree with you. I go, all right, bro. You can think what you want.
But then there's this problem. There's a problem right here. Like, okay, like let's take for example H.H. Holmes. right?
Oh,
H.H. Holmes.
okay.
Oh.
The devil.
So he is really okay. For those who don't know who H.H. Holmes, which I would be surprised, is he's a serial killer. He's from Chicago. Well, was he from Chicago?
Yes.
I know he
Yeah.
was.
During the World State Fair, he
Yes.
laid a trap house of different ways that he can kill people that
That's
stay inside
crazy.
the hotel.
In Englewood, to be exact, a post office.
Killed like hundreds of people.
Give me the zip code. Uh huh.
Yeah.
Oh,
my.
So the story was that when he was a kid, he obviously grew up in a really healthy environment, like two parents,
Like there's no reason for him to do that, right?
But the problem was that his dad was like a doctor, I believe, and he would do like anatomy on like animals, like so he grew up seeing all that, like he grew up seeing his dad like open up like dead animal bodies to kind of like experiment on it, because at the time it's like we're trying to like we didn't know what exactly our body was and how to like find cures to it, so we were experimenting with things, and so he grew up around it, and so he thought that by seeing his dad doing that, it was like the normal thing, so he started doing those type of things, like he started killing animals thinking that it was the right thing to do, and he started opening the bodies, and so like I feel like because of that he ended up being the person that he is known for, what he is today, like a serial killer.
yeah. See, okay, that's where the debate is like how
Welcome
much.
to ethics.
Yeah, really.
No. So then would that be like ethics is
With the
subjective?
devil in me.
Bro thinks he's him. Bro thinks he's
I
him.
don't
That's what
think.
he said.
I know. I know.
See, the thing with ethics though is there's so much revolving around it that you won't know if it's like morally right or wrong.
Right.
Because someone else will have a different opinion and you will get influenced by it. Regardless, even if you don't try to get influenced by it, you will get influenced by it. And it's not something that you can really control. You're just around that type of people. You're around that, I guess, flow of things, which is why I think there's an important question to ask. Is there anything that we can do to maybe change ethical standards or maybe, improve on them? For example, if someone said murder is good, how can we change that?
Huh?
I mean, but why change it though?
I mean, they are entitled to think in their
Or
own
sorry,
way.
murder. Did I say murder is good or murder
Yeah.
is
No,
bad?
yeah. No, but I'm just saying, why would change somebody's views? Because that's how they were born and raised. You know what I'm saying?
See, if you really had to change their views, you could introduce different perspectives. But in the end,
You can't
ethics
change a
is
person.
ethics, bro.
Yeah, right.
It's
so
technically
subjective.
subjective.
It's subjective. There's no objective. way.
So essentially, you're saying that
there is no right way of
there
living.
is no right way of improving or maybe expanding on one's beliefs of ethics.
Yeah,
I'm-
yeah. I mean, even in medicine, you can't really force someone to do.
Like I'd be
something.
showing like people's
Unless
patients
they're
information to everybody. No, I'm kidding.
incompetent.
I'm kidding.
Well,
Wow.
you also got to consider like where do you live, like
Yeah,
the
yeah. The
United
environment,
States,
right?
Yeah.
Your
the
culture.
United States, it's like what is it, freedom, so you get to do whatever you want, you get I mean, as long as it's not killing, obviously, but
Like legal. If it's
legally,
legal,
like you
yeah.
can be any type of religion you want, you can do whatever you want, right? But in certain countries like China or like Russia, where you have to actually follow North Korea, yeah, exactly, North Korea.
Okay, so
And on the opposite end of
And
the
they think that's
spectrum,
normal though. Like the people living there, they
Yeah.
think that's normal.
yeah,
Right.
opposite end of the spectrum is like Papua New Guinea, where you could literally do whatever and eat people and kill. Like literally, I'm not even kidding. There are tribes that just don't have rules like that. That's how
Great.
it is there.
well, not great, as in like, oh no.
I mean,
That's
great,
ethics, bro.
Should we have rules though? You feel me?
Yeah,
I
I mean,
feel
it's
like-
not all Papua New Guinea either. There's
No,
just
right.
parts of like, you know what I mean. So like that's where like that's a really out there example, but that's the difference, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just depends on where you grow up and where you live. It seems. You
But
know?
I mean, we could all just agree that ethics is like really important. It establishes.
It's good to have
us.
values for sure.
Because even with like the example of the witch trials, when at the time our government depended a lot on religion, what was it, Christianity or something like that?
Yeah.
And like
Protestantism,
there's
yeah.
like people that would do like witchcraft or whatever, and then it was always women too, which was like weird.
Yeah.
And just by that, like
Hence the
they
term
would get
witch.
like burned. Like it's crazy. Like
Nah, because they thought it was like unnatural.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's crazy.
but like now we were able to separate religion from government, and that's why like a lot of the stuff might not be it's not like too focused on like religion, where like with certain religions you have to wear certain type of clothing or like follow some type of ruling. Like you just walk out and not have to worry about other people like judging you type of situation.
And I guess we can follow back to our first question. I guess we talked about what really is ethics. I think now that it's not really textbook. Do you guys agree? It's not
Yeah.
a
No.
textbook definition. I think it varies. I think there's many definitions.
And it really just comes down to your beliefs, what you feel is right. Even though there could be a general format for how you should think, in the end, it's up to you.
And I feel like, sorry, I need to add something in there because earlier I also said that you don't necessarily have to take an ethics class to know what ethics is. But then again, ECC has classes that are like ethics based on religion or like cultural ethics.
yeah.
So like it's not about knowing what ethics is, but it's knowing how to respect other people's ethics.
And with that, I guess that concludes today's episode. Big thanks to the guys for coming out here. Big thanks to James as well for kind of showing up here and taking pictures, doing our first video episode. It won't be video, obviously, but, it's in the works, so stay tuned for that. Big thank you to our listeners and a big shout out to our sponsor, Columbia College of Missouri. Remember, you can begin a new chapter at Columbia College of Missouri in Elgin, where they offer flexible, affordable degrees for real lives and real responsibilities located locally on the ECC campus. You can take their classes in person or online, all at your own pace. Remember that you can apply today at elgin.ccis.edu. Columbia College, building new paths to success. A huge shout out to our audio editor, Indy Wilson. And to learn more about The Observer and to see our work, visit elginobserver.com. Follow us on Instagram at ECC Podcast and on TikTok at Elgin Observer. Until next time, I'm Vanch.
I'm Eric.
I'm Matt.
I'm Moises.
And we'll see you next time.
All right.